When Gal Gadot was cast as Wonder Woman, I had no idea who she was. When I saw her, I was conflicted. She was beautiful, of course, but in my mind she looked too slim to play an immortal Amazon forged in battle. I expected a more physically imposing woman for the part, maybe someone like Gina Carano in her prime. But then all my doubts vanished the moment I saw Gadot's smile. She has a radiant smile, one that lights up any room she enters. Back when the first Wonder Woman was in production, I was talking to a friend, the blue-haired and perpetually angry kind of friend, if you catch my drift, and I told her I appreciated that Gal Gadot had a gentle and kind smile. I say that made her perfect to portray the Princess of Themyscira. My friend, like any furious woman who spends too much time online, responded with, "Wonder Woman doesn't need to have a gentle smile." I turned to her dramatically and yelled, "Objection!" so loudly that every glass panel around us shattered. Then I said, Wonder Woman needs to be gentle. We're talking about a 6'2" woman who can lift a Sherman tank over her head and tear it in half like it's made of paper. Someone like that must radiate kindness, otherwise regular people wouldn't admire her. They'd fear her. Same goes for Batman. Why doesn't his mask cover his mouth? So he won't scare children. Justice League The New Frontier has an entire scene that focuses on that. So, why am I bringing this up now? Because I want to talk about Superman, more specifically why Zack Snyder's Superman and his entire vision of the DC universe was doomed to fail. As we all know, James Gunn's Superman has just hit theaters. From what I've seen so far, opinions are split. Some people loved it, others hated it, and some thought it was just mid. I'm looking at you, Snarky J, you beautiful cosplayer with strong opinions, you. But regardless, I'm hyped. Hyped like I haven't been since, well, Man of Steel. And we all know how disappointing that was. So, why am I so optimistic this time? One reason: hope. That was the core message of James Gunn's Superman trailer. A world in chaos, people in danger, and one man, a Superman, doing everything he can to protect the innocent. When I saw him shielding a little girl from debris, I knew this movie would be something special. I haven't watched it yet. I might hate it. It might dethrone Blade Trinity as the worst comic book adaptation ever, but right now, I'm excited. Now, I absolutely detest what Zack Snyder did with Superman and his super friends, and for one simple reason: Snyder's version of DC Universe is not about heroes. Let's take Man of Steel as an example. Most criticisms of the movie focus on the destructive fight scenes. Don't get me wrong, the way Supes and Zod level Metropolis is awful, and one of the reasons is because it numbs the audience. Have you ever played Call of Duty? Dumb question, I know. Everyone online has played it at some point. It's almost a prerequisite to be on the internet nowadays. In the campaign, there is a rhythm. You move from point A to B, engage in combat, then regroup before moving to point C. These calm moments serve as cooldowns. You need peaks and valleys. Too much downtime and you get bored. Too much action and you get desensitized, and then you get bored anyway. That's the structural issue with Man of Steel's action scenes. The destruction becomes white noise, but worse than that, it shows us that Superman simply doesn't care. At one point, Zod throws a tanker at Kal-El. He just casually floats over it and lets it slam into a building, causing it to collapse and letting who knows how many people die in the process. That's just one example. Throughout the fight, Superman is focused solely on beating Zod. Saving lives? Not his concern, until suddenly it is. He lets an entire city and its inhabitants be turned to rubble and ash, but those people that Zod threatens at the end of their fight, Their lives suddenly matter. They matter so much that Superman is compelled to do the twist with the villain's neck. Whoa! Zack Snyder, you're such a visionary. Okay, let me bring a Greek philosopher now because this video isn't bizarre enough as it is. Plato, who was a broad-shouldered dude, once said, "The measure of a man is what he does with power." Superman and superheroes in general are ordinary people gifted with extraordinary abilities, who choose to use them selflessly. Spider-Man, my all-time favorite comic book hero, is a perpetually broke guy subsisting on hot dogs, instant noodles, and kisses from hot girls. He could get rich easily by exploiting his powers. In fact, he tried doing just that in the beginning, but he soon learned that when you have the power to do good and don't, people get hurt. A lot of people think Superman is boring because he's too powerful. He's got super strength, invulnerability, flight, super speed, laser vision, ice breath, and in the golden age of comics he basically had whatever superpower his writers could come up with. How do you root for someone who is practically invincible? Isn't it cooler to admire Batman, who has no power but uses his brain, gadgets, and the magical deus ex machina that is prep time? But the point of Superman isn't his powers, it's what he chooses to do with them. Kal-El could conquer Earth, enslave humanity, and live a life of indulgence with a harem composed of Sydney Sweeney, Elizabeth Olsen, Isabella Merced, and whoever else he could think of. Instead, he doesn't, because he's not Kal-El from Krypton. He's Clark Kent, the kind-hearted son of Jonathan and Martha Kent, Kansas farmers who raised him with unshakable values. They gave him a moral compass strong enough to guide a god. I always say no cinematic DC universe should begin with any movie other than Superman. Not because he was the first DC hero in comics, but because he is the example for all the others. He is the god from space who looked at humanity, had the power to save it or destroy it, and he chose to save it. He is the guy who inspires everyone, heroes and ordinary people alike. Because the measure of a man is what he does with power, and the most powerful man on Earth chose to use his gifts to make the world better. And that's why Zack Snyder's vision never had a chance. He doesn't understand that simple truth. Don't get me wrong, I think Snyder is a talented filmmaker. I love 300 and I personally believe his Watchmen adaptation is better than the book in many ways, but he was absolutely the wrong person to handle Superman and the DCU because he views heroism through an incredibly cynical lens. In James Gunn's Superman trailer, we see Clark taking time to help people in the middle of a crisis. A little girl about to be crushed, a bystander in the path of a kaiju, and according to a friend who's already seen the movie, there's even a moment where he stops to rescue squirrels. Corny? Maybe, but it's exactly what we need right now. As we all know, the S on Superman's chest means hope in Kryptonian. Look around you. The world is bleak. It crushes even the strongest spirits. Our media and corporations push greed, lust, and selfishness as virtues. In my country, we even have a saying that translates to "the world belongs to hustlers." In a reality where being good is seen as a weakness, Superman is punk as hell. He's the guy who's kind just because he wants to be, who helps everyone he can, for whom the greatest tragedy is knowing he'll never be able to save everyone. That's why the Snyderverse never stood a chance. It didn't resist the darkness of the world, it embraced it. It let the world's vices corrupt the very symbols of hope and light he was the guardian of. But that light, that essence, is what makes a hero. Whether they're from Marvel, DC, manga, movies, video games, or even ancient history. Humanity has always had heroes, figures that push us to be better, to do good, and to bring joy to the people around us. Zack Snyder is a skilled director, but if he can't understand this fundamental truth about the characters he's adapting, there's no way he could ever make them work. So yeah, those are my 2 cents on the matter. What do you guys think? Do you agree with my view of what a hero should be, or are you a Snyder bro, a fan of a Justice League that feels like it was written by Ayn Rand? By the way, did you like this video format? I'm working on a longer essay style one right now, but those take time, and YouTube isn't kind to creators who post infrequently. So, to make Senpai algorithm notice me, I'm going to start putting out more of these shorter, unscripted videos. Gameplay in the background, me rambling, and this chubby little guy representing yours truly. Don't worry, the long-form essays aren't going away. Think of these short ones as appetizers before the Thanksgiving feast. So, that's all for now. See you guys next time. Until then, be good to yourselves and to everyone you love. Cheers!